Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Breaking Student Debt Podcast. I am incredibly pumped to bring back one of our favorite guests, Joe Reinke of FitBucks. Joe, it is a blast and a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I'm always happy to jump on and talk student loans. So let's do it.
We were just talking off camera or off mic. Joe brought up a really good point that we've got a lot of students that are going to be hitting their grace period. Their grace period is going to be coming to an end, especially people who graduated in May. We're looking at hitting that 6-month mark soon. We're also going to have quite a few people graduating from PT programs, medical programs in December. And I thought this could be a perfect time, Joe, that I could bring someone on to talk about how do we navigate this process of the repayment options that we have after we graduate. And so I remember being really confusing for me, and I knew that there were different ways to pay your loans. We had, I think, all of a half an hour lecture in school, which, was obviously satisfactory. And I was thinking we should really have someone come on and help break this down, because there are multiple options and there are different consequences and or benefits of each of them. And this is going to be kind of an informal brush over the surface topic. And then obviously, if you want more detail, please reach out to Joe after this, as he and FitBucks have created an incredible service that can help you. But Joe's just going to say, if you don't touch anything and you graduate, what do you typically fall into as a repayment plan?
Yeah. So, and to clarify first and foremost, on this discussion, I'll be basically focusing on federal loan options. So if you have private loans, it's a lot easier with those because there's a lot less options. So this, conversation's more on federal loans. When you graduate, you're automatically put into a standard 10-year fixed repayment plan.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we break down the language, Joe, so 10 years is a silly question, but means that it is going to take your loans and figure out how much it would cost you a month to pay them back in 10 years?
Yeah. And so, if you want to up level it even one step further, there's basically two things you can do with your federal loans, right? You're going to pay them down, or you're going to go on loan forgiveness. And so when we talk about paying down a loan, that's what we typically think of. So like if I get a car loan, right, it's 5 years, I'm paying it off. After 5 years, I have no more loan. If I get a mortgage of 30 years, I pay it for 30 years and then it's gone. So in those loans, you have a required payment every single month. So let's just say it's $1,000 a month. That means if you're in a standard 10-year fixed loan, the payment is $1,000 a month. And after 10 years, the loan's gone. Okay. And then in order to understand how like prepayments are, which we'll touch on probably in a few minutes, but in order to understand prepayments and loan forgiveness, all those other things, you need to understand how a loan works. And part of that is that minimum payment. So $1,000 a month goes towards it. Now you have to understand how those two things are broken up. That $1,000, how it's broken up, I should say, into two aspects. One is reducing how much you actually owe. One's the interest that you're paying. So like you might have like a 6% interest rate on your loans. So of that $1,000, like $600 of it might be going to interest, $400 is to principal reduction. And over time, more and more goes towards principal reduction until you owe nothing over time. So that's basically how our loan works, but that's how that standard 10-year fixed plan works as well.
Okay. So we have this 10-year fixed plan, and I guess we'll just start out with a little vocabulary lesson that as we're going to go through, we're going to talk about fixed versus variable when we're talking about loans. Do you mind real quick, Joe, what the difference is before we kind of dive into the other?
Yeah. So fixed rate loans, basically you have an interest rate and it stays the same the entire time. So you have a 6.25% rate. It's going to be 6.25% every single month. A variable rate is more traditionally, depending on like private loans, as well as when we talk about loan forgiveness, there's some movement there. But variable just basically means your monthly payment can change every single month. And one misconception on variable rate loans is that the lender determines the interest rate. That's not correct. It's based on a market rate, on what's called an index. So it's really out of the lender's hands. And I hear that all the time. Oh, my lender raised my rates. Like, no, they didn't raise it. The market went up. That's why. So that's how variable rates work.
Okay. Is there a benefit to one over the other? Or if someone, let's say, is not typically as financially savvy, would you recommend one over the other?
Yeah, if you're not, if you're a quote novice to finance, I always say keep it simple. The fixed rate's going to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay.
You can start playing around with some variable rate stuff, but if you're just trying to keep it simple, stay with fixed rate loans.
Okay. So I'm kind of thinking back to I remember when I was going through the process, and you and I were in touch quite a bit going through my own decision of what plan I should get on. And I'm trying to remember in my head right now, there was the 10-year plan, and then you could extend to the 25-year plan as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind just breaking down kind of what's the difference? I mean, obviously there's a difference in number of years, but what does that mean over time for, say, me who owes $100,000?
Yeah. And so, again, we're talking about paying down your loans, so not loan forgiveness. Okay. Right. So literally paying down your loans. What happens is you have actually two plans you can extend them out to, say, 25 years. One's a fixed plan, one's a graduated plan. Okay. The graduated plans, I hardly ever recommend anybody because you get some really sharp increases every 2 years. And so I don't necessarily recommend doing that. So I'm going to primarily talk about just the extended fixed plan. And that plan you can extend out to 25 years and you stay at the same interest rates as you already have. Okay. So going back to that example that I said earlier, where like if you stayed on the 10-year loan, your minimum payment would be $1,000 a month. Well, instead, if you go out to 25 years, that minimum payment might drop to, say, $500 a month. And so you have some more budget flexibility and you're paying it off over 25 years instead of 10 years. But that's also the disadvantage, is because you're paying it off over 25 years over time. If you just make that minimum payment, you're going to pay a lot more relative to the 10-year because you're paying an extra 15 years, right? So that's why that happens. Now, what's the advantage of it? Your required minimum payment drops to $500 every single month, let's say. Now you can decide, okay, well, I want to make a prepayment. And what a prepayment is when you're paying down your loans, they will tell you, hey, you have to pay $500 a month or whatever you have to pay. Anything you pay above that is a prepayment, and it's discretionary. You can pay it whenever you want to. So you can turn around and say, okay, well, this month I'm going to pay $300 extra. Next month, $1,000 extra. And you can actually start paying off your high interest rate loans faster and pay down your loans quicker, and you have more budget flexibility. So that's why the 25-year, that's the advantage, is it has more flexibility. You can actually save more money doing that. But that goes into a lot of numbers where, we go through that on calls with people where how much they can actually save and how it's more efficient. But the bottom line is the 25-year fixed plan relative to the 10-year, you're going to have a lower required payment, which gives your budget more flexibility. But you don't just want to make that minimum payment. If you're going to do that, you want to make a higher payment and just take advantage of the flexibility.
Okay. So just to break down for our listeners so 10 years, we're looking at probably a higher payment. So let's say you owe $100,000 in 10 years, you're going to be paying $10,000 a year to eventually pay everything back in 10 years. Whereas I could go to 25 years and let's say I can get my monthly payment down to $500. But over time, because of interest, I'm going to end up paying a lot more back in the long run.
Yep, okay. Exactly.
So kind of I guess just for simple terms, like it just really depends on what you're able to afford and be flexible with and live off of during that time. Okay.
Yeah, when we do the extended plans, you don't want to do it for all 25 years.
Okay,
that's cost you a lot. So you want to take advantage of the flexibility, maybe make some small prepayments now, and as your income increases over time, you just keep increasing how much you prepay and try to target it paying it off in at least 10 to 15 years, if not sooner than that.
Okay. So then that's the 10-year repayment plan. The standard is what it's called, standard or 10-year repayment plan, as well as the 25-year. And you could do the extended or graduated. If you're curious to know more about the graduated and extended, obviously reach out to Joe after this. This is just more of an overview episode. And then, Joe, I think one of the fascinating things is how ignorant I was before all this. I thought, oh, well, I'll just do the income-driven repayment plan combined with my extended 25-year plan, and I'll get like my payment down to $200 a month. And then I started to realize I don't think that's how this works. How does the income-driven repayment plan, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is a whole separate repayment plan. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it's actually a whole different type of loan structure. Okay. So when I'll touch about what it means by the minimum payment on this, because there's a lot of confusion on people that say, well, I'm going on loan forgiveness, but I'm going to make extra payments. And they call it a prepayment. It's not the same thing as if you're paying down your loans. Okay. So I'll explain that in a minute. In general, you have to understand how the income-driven repayment plans or loan forgiveness plans actually work. And the way they work is they cap your payments at a percentage of your adjusted gross income. So let's just say it's 10%. So that comes out to, say, $200 a month. Okay. And then what happens is over time, let's say in 20 years, whatever you don't pay back, your loan is forgiven. Okay. Whatever the balance is. However, you owe taxes on that amount. Okay. So whatever ordinary income tax bracket you're going to be in, that's what you got to pay. So you have to plan for that. But the key thing is we have this big fancy word for this type of loan in the finance world. It's called a negative amortization loan. Okay. So in simplistic terms, what that means, as you recall, I just said in this example, let's just say the government said your payments are $200 a month. Now, if you recall in the original example, when I was talking about this is how a loan works, let's just say you had $1,000 payment and you're paying down your loans. And I said maybe $400 of that was going to reduce principal, $600 of that was to interest. Okay. The interest piece is the key piece. And so let's just say you decide, okay, I'm not going to pay off my loans. I want to stay in my income-driven repayment plan. Your interest is still $600 a month. So if you're only paying $200 a month, that difference of $400 does not just magically go away. It gets added to the loan balance. Okay. So your loan balance in the loan forgiveness plans, especially in the early years, continues to go up. Okay. And so that's why when you say, well, I'm going to make a prepayment, and we hear it all the time. People are like, oh, I'm going to get my payment's $200, but I'm going to make an extra $100 payment every month. You're really not chipping away at paying off your loans. You're still just paying interest on your loans, and that's it. So the key,
you have to get beyond that interest to really make it.
Exactly. So the key is, again, just if you wanted to break it down simply on the loan forgiveness, they cap your required payment at 10% of your income. But whatever interest you're not paying on the loans continues to build on it. So your loan balance goes up. And then after 20 or 25 years, whatever balance and accrued interest is on the account, it's forgiven, but you owe taxes on that amount.
Got you. So is this, and this just still shows my ignorance here, is the income-driven repayment plan, is that just another word for the loan forgiveness plan, or are those separate?
Yeah, they're all interchangeable. And with underneath, so income-driven repayment plan, there's actually 5 different plans now. Okay. So the government classifies them all as income-driven repayment and loan forgiveness. So you may have heard them being called like Repay, PAYE, IBR for old borrowers, ICR. Those are all income-driven repayment plans, loan forgiveness. The other one is actually if you work for a nonprofit, it's called public service loan forgiveness. But that's just saying if you're on one of those 5 plans and you work for a nonprofit for 10 years, the loans are forgiven. But you have to be on one of those loan forgiveness programs.
Does the tax aspect still apply to that? Or is that
no, if you work at a nonprofit as of today, now they're probably going to be changing this.
Okay.
But if you work at a nonprofit for 10 years, then the loan's forgiven and you owe no taxes.
Okay.
So that's the primary difference.
So we have the standard 10-year repayment plan, and then we have, which you can do fixed or variable at the 10-year plan, is that?
No, so the government loans are only fixed. The variables come into play more on the private loans.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we have the 25-year extended plan or the 25-year graduated plan. Is that correct? And then we also now have this loan forgiveness or IDR, income-driven repayment plans that are available.
Yep.
Am I forgetting any?
No, I mean, from a high level, those are the simplest things you can look at. Now, obviously, what we do with clients is we compare. First of all, the decision has to be made what are you looking to do, paying down your loans or an income-driven repayment plan? And you have to compare them side by side with the advantages and disadvantages. And then once you say, hey, look, I'm thinking about going, and say it's a loan forgiveness plan. Okay, well, let's drill down into that and say, okay, well, we think that this specific one is going to be the best one for you. This is how you take advantage of it. This is how you reduce the risk of it, so on and so forth. But if you're really just saying, okay, well, at a high level, what is it? It's pay down versus like loan forgiveness. And that's the first decision that has to be made.
Since this is a sort of an overview episode, I won't dive too deep, but kind of going with that question, what are some personal questions you should be asking yourself to kind of go through that decision? Obviously, I would highly recommend speaking with someone, for example, from FitBucks to help walk you through that. But what are some questions that maybe are important to ask, whether it's more important to do a loan forgiveness or pay debt down?
Yeah, so this is why I get upset when I see stuff like on, like blogs or internet sites where it's like, you should do this. And it's like, no, it's customized to each person. Okay. And at the end of the day, like when we get on the phone with someone, the first question that I know I always ask, and we talk about this in our student loan workshops that we do for different programs, is you really have to look at your goals and what you're trying to do. And, I always say this, it's actually like our tagline on our website is that, you want to make the student loans easy because you don't want to concentrate on them. You want to do other things with your life. So your student loan repayment plan needs to complement your life. And in order to complement it, you need to know your goals. So we break down like career goals, right? Do you see something that can change your cash flow, like starting a company or something like that? And then personal goals. So that can be broken up into two. So things like, do you see yourself getting married or having children anytime soon? Because that could change your cash flow. So again, the key is your cash flow going to change? Okay, do you need flexibility? And the other piece of the financial goals is, what would you rather do? Do you want to pay off debt? Do you want to start saving for a house? Can you do both? Where are you at personally? And then once you start answering some of those questions, it really starts narrowing down the choices for your like repayment of your loans. And then that's when you can say, okay, I'm going this one or this one. Here's the advantages, disadvantages. Based on each one of these, it will allow me to do this goal or that goal. And this is, what I would have to do to maximize either one of these. So it's really focusing, like if you're trying to answer those questions, it's what are my goals? And then what is available to me in the student loan repayment plan to help me accomplish those goals.
Awesome. And I love the personalized approach. In fact, that's a toss up here, or tease me up to ask you, what, for example, someone who I think has followed this podcast before, or the Nobody's podcast, would know a good deal about FitBucks or have heard of FitBucks before, but what kind of services, Joe, do you all offer? Like, how does someone become engaged with FitBucks? How do they sign up for FitBucks? How can they follow you guys? What is the best action to take for someone who's listening who thinks, I could really use to talk with someone about this?
Yeah, so our services are broken up into two components. So the first piece is developing a strategy. So you go to fitbucks.com, you sign up, you build your profile. The profile really helps us answer some of those questions about like career and personal, because we're going to see what you can do and can't do. And it also gives us a starting point. So like we give each person a snapshot, show you a budget, because it allows us to start explaining some of these things in realistic terms, and how it all relates to you personally. And so from there, we then jump on a call and actually walk you through it all. So we call that the developing stage, meaning you're developing your student loan strategy. We do all that for free. Okay. And then from there, we have the implementation part of the strategy. So, for example, if you go on loan forgiveness, there's some stuff you have to do in terms of savings. So we can help you save the money and manage the money for you. If you decide, well, I'm going to stay my federal loans, I really want to take advantage of this extend and prepay type of thing. We can track it for you to make sure you're doing it correctly, as well as the lender is doing it correctly. So on both of those, we charge like a $5 fee a month to do that. And then the last one would be if you decide, well, actually refinancing, which we didn't talk about, but it's literally you're getting rid of your federal loans for private loans. If you decide to refinance because you're going to save more money that way, we have 4 lending partners that we help you go out and work with. So to break it down, it's the development stage, which is free. And then the second part is the implementation component. And again, if you refinance, the lenders pay us, you don't. If you decide I want you guys to help me actually implement the strategy and track it, then we charge a monthly fee for it.
I think it's, guys, if you're listening and you've listened to this before, you know that I'm a major proponent for signing up for FitBucks. I think it's incredible. Guys, it's like the discovery development part is free. If you're out there and you have questions and you feel like this is overwhelming and daunting, like I use FitBucks. It's something that it's a service I use. I constantly bring Joe back because he's just full of knowledge and he wants to serve people. And I really mean from the bottom of my heart, if you have any questions, you're worried about this, you have any fears, please sign up for FitBucks. And the crazy thing is right now, it's like $5 a month for them to implement this. Like some of your finances for $5 like it's insane. Like it's not even, it sounds crazy. And I would get in now because I think the service is going to get more and more used and it's going to, prices will probably rise, nothing crazy, but just saying, I think it's a great time. I think what FitBucks does is amazing. Joe, I know this was an overview episode, but I think packed in a ton of value, breaking down the standard 10-year repayment plan versus the 25-year plan option versus the income-driven repayment plan / loan forgiveness plan. Joe, it's always a pleasure to have you here. And as always, just thank you for what you're doing for our community.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. And I'm sure I'll be back soon. So it's always fun.
Joe, how can, let's say someone's maybe still on the fence, they want to know more about your content or just curious to see where they can pick up stuff from you guys. Where can people follow you guys on Facebook, on Twitter, social media, website?
Yeah. We are mostly engaged on Facebook. It's just FitBucks Official is the official handle. So that's the easiest way to find us on social media. And then, of course, FitBucks.com. On there, we have everything from different blog articles to our knowledge center that goes through like student loan videos and some of the stuff in more details. So FitBucks.com or FitBucks Official on Facebook are the two primary ways.
Awesome. Guys, I'm going to have links to those in the show notes. So if you're listening to this now, you can go to the show notes at breakingstudentdebt.weebly.com. You can go to fitbucks.com directly. Guys, I just hope, please, if you have any doubts or any questions or concerns, to reach out to Joe or to FitBucks. It's just incredible. It's a great place to start. And what they're doing is just amazing. Guys, as always, keep climbing. We're going to get out of debt together. And Joe, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Guys, keep climbing.